War is chaos. Bullets tear through the air, artillery shakes the earth, and men are reduced to shadows, moving through smoke. But beyond the fear, beyond the death, soldiers across history have reported something even stranger. Visions of armies that were not there, battalions marching through the fog that no bullet could touch. In World War II, perhaps the most destructive conflict in human history, stories of phantom soldiers appeared again and again. Tales whispered by men at the front lines, stories recorded in diaries and letters, accounts that blurred the line between exhaustion, hallucination, and the supernatural. On the battlefields of Europe, as German forces advanced across France in 1940, villagers swore they saw medieval knights standing on hillsides at night, watching silently as tanks rolled past. In Normandy after D-Day, Allied soldiers reported entire columns of men marching through ruined villages, their uniforms tattered, their faces pale, their eyes blank. One American paratrooper recalled waking in the middle of the night to the sound of boots crunching on gravel. Looking out, he saw German soldiers moving past, rifles slung, their formation precise. He froze, ready to fire, but as he blinked, the figures faded, dissolving into the ruins. He later confessed, the silence was the worst. Soldiers march with noise. These men made none. On the Eastern Front, where the war was a furnace of unimaginable suffering, phantom armies appeared most often. In the endless snows of Russia, German soldiers claimed to see Soviet battalions charging through the mist, only to vanish before reaching the lines. Exhaustion, hunger, and terror may have explained such visions, but some swore that the figures looked too real, their bayonets glinting in moonlight, their faces twisted in rage. Soviet soldiers too told their own stories of seeing dead comrades standing among the living, urging them to fight or warning them of incoming fire. In one diary, a Red Army soldier wrote, "Last night I saw Ivan again. He told me to keep my head down. In the morning, the trench where I had been sitting was destroyed by a shell. Ivan has been dead for 3 weeks." The Pacific Theater had its share of phantoms as well. On remote islands, American Marines often felt they were being watched, even when no enemy was present. At Guadalcanal, men on night watch reported seeing figures moving among the trees. Some fired, only to find nothing but empty jungle. Others described hearing Japanese voices whispering around their foxholes, though patrols found no one. A Marine later wrote, "Sometimes I thought the jungle itself was alive. You'd hear footsteps behind you, branches breaking, voices calling your name. But when you turned, there was only darkness." One of the most famous accounts comes from the Ardennes during the Battle of the Bulge in late 1944. A group of American soldiers cut off from their unit claimed they saw a column of Allied troops approaching through the snow. Relieved, they prepared to join them until they noticed something strange. The figures made no sound. Their boots left no prints in the snow. And as they grew closer, their faces were pale, eyes empty. They vanished into the blizzard. The stranded men survived the night and swore until their dying days that they had seen an army of the dead walking past them. Some historians argue these stories were nothing more than exhaustion, stress, or collective hallucinations. Soldiers deprived of sleep, freezing, and terrified are bound to see things that are not there. But others point to how consistent the stories are across different armies, different cultures, and different battlefields. Whether in Europe, the Pacific, or the deserts of North Africa, men described the same things. Phantom troops marching, dead comrades appearing, voices warning them of danger. Could all of these have been hallucinations, or was something else at work? There are theories that battlefields themselves become imprinted with the violence committed upon them. Memories burned into the land like scars. The stone tape theory suggests that the energy of suffering and death replays itself, like a recording stuck on a loop. This could explain soldiers seeing phantom armies the past replaying itself before their eyes. But that does not explain the encounters where phantoms interacted with the living, warning them, saving them, or even luring them into danger. One chilling account comes from Italy, 1943. A British officer wrote that his men were moving through a ruined village at night when they were approached by a group of soldiers in German uniforms. The men raised their weapons, but the officer noticed something strange. The Germans' uniforms were from the First World War, outdated, wrong for the time. He ordered his men to hold fire. The German soldiers marched past them silently, their faces pale and rigid. When the last had passed, the officer turned to speak to his men, but when he looked back, the Germans were gone. He later wrote, "It was as though we had witnessed the dead of another war, still marching through their eternal patrol." In the Pacific, Japanese soldiers also told strange stories. On Saipan, some survivors claimed they saw the spirits of their comrades rising from the jungle after mass suicides, their faces twisted in anguish. American Marines occupying the island later spoke of hearing screams at night, long after the fighting had ended. Some swore they saw figures darting between palm trees, too fast, too silent to be living men. Perhaps the most unsettling stories are the personal ones. Soldiers who claimed they were visited by dead friends. A German soldier at Stalingrad wrote in his diary, "I saw Ernst again last night. He told me not to eat the bread, that it was spoiled. I threw it away. In the morning, those who ate it were sick. Ernst died a month ago, but he is still here." A Soviet soldier told a similar story that his father, who had died years before, appeared to him in the trenches and told him he would survive the battle. The soldier later confessed, "I believed him, and I did survive, but I wonder, was it really him or something else wearing his face?" Theories range from the psychological to the supernatural. Some believe soldiers' minds, under extreme stress, conjure the dead as a form of comfort or guidance. Others argue that war, with its oceans of blood and death, thins the barrier between worlds. On battlefields soaked in suffering, the living and the dead may walk side by side. Even after the war ended, the stories continued. Tourists visiting Normandy reported seeing soldiers in the fields, only for them to vanish when approached. Villagers in Russia claimed to hear singing at night in places where mass graves were uncovered. And veterans, long after leaving the war behind, confessed that they still dreamed of phantom battalions marching endlessly through the mist. Perhaps phantom soldiers are only the echoes of memory, the mind's way of processing trauma too vast to comprehend. Or perhaps they are exactly what they seem, the restless dead, condemned to march forever, reliving their final hours. In a war that claimed more than 60 million lives, is it so hard to believe that not all of them found peace? War ends, armies disband, but the phantom soldiers remain, marching through ruined villages, standing guard in the snow, whispering in the ears of the living. A reminder that on the battlefield, death is never far away, and sometimes it does not let go.